If Jesus wants your attention, he'll touch what you hold dearest. For me, it was my obsession with saving America and the man I thought could do it. My name is Frank. I'm 64 years old. On March 12th, I died in my living room while yelling at the news. For 35 years, I owned an auto parts store in a small town in Ohio. I used to know the names of all my customers. Kids who used to come in with their dads now came in with their own kids. I was on the town council for more than 10 years and coached Little League. People used to believe what I said. But at some point, I lost that version of myself. You might know how it feels to think the world is falling apart, to see the country you love fall apart. That's how it all started for me. I went from watching the news every night to all day after 2016. What began as worry became an obsession. I really thought that America wouldn't last if people didn't wake up, so I set out to wake them up. I went to every rally I could get to by car. I put flags on my truck, my porch, and even my mailbox. I spent hours arguing with people I didn't know on Facebook. I lost friends I had known since high school. Some of them just stopped calling. Some people told me right away that I had changed. But I didn't care. I thought I was doing something good. I didn't see who I was hurting at home. My wife, Margaret, who I've been married to for 38 years, started eating dinner alone. She used to love sitting on the porch with me after work, but now I'm stuck inside watching cable news. She would ask me how my day was, and I would start another political rant. I remember her saying to me once, "Frank, I miss my husband. I miss us." I didn't care. I told myself that she didn't get how important it was. David, our son, stopped coming over as much. I thought he might just be busy with my grandkids, Emma and Luke. But one night, Margaret told me the truth. He doesn't want to bring them here anymore. He says he doesn't want the kids to hear their grandpa scream about politics at the table. That hurt me more than I want to admit, but I didn't change. I dug in deeper. I prayed more, but to be honest, those prayers were more like orders. God, make Trump strong. God, keep the media away from him. Please, God, don't let us lose this country. But I wasn't asking God for peace, humility, or wisdom. I was just scared. And I thought that if one man fell, the whole country would fall. I could feel it in my body, too. My blood pressure went up a lot. I couldn't get any sleep. At 2 a.m., my heart was racing, and I couldn't sleep. My doctor told me to slow down and gave me more medicine. I told them I was fine. I wasn't. You know that time when everything you've been hiding starts to catch up with you. It happened to me on a Tuesday night. March. I was sitting in my recliner and watching a news report about Trump's health. The headline was vague, but I was already mad. I got up and yelled at the screen. In the kitchen, Margaret was washing dishes. She yelled, "Frank, please turn it off for tonight." "Please?" I said, without thinking. "You just want me to stop caring." I'm the only one who still cares about what happens to this country. That's when the hurt started, in my chest. It felt like something was holding my heart and squeezing it. I couldn't see clearly. I remember reaching for the TV as if I were trying to steady myself, and then nothing. Only black. That was the last thing I saw before I died. I didn't know it at the time, but I was dead for 11 minutes. Later, Margaret told me she thought I was dead. I fell backward onto the recliner and hit the floor with a thud that would stay with her for weeks. She was crying and begging them to hurry when she called 911. The paramedics worked on me in the living room and then in the ambulance. It went flat twice. But while they were trying to save my life, I was somewhere else. And that place would change everything I thought I knew about Trump, America, myself, and who is really in charge. I always thought that dying would feel like falling off a cliff, but it didn't. It felt like letting go of something I didn't even know I was holding too tightly. I was reaching for the TV, and my heart was pounding like a hammer in my chest. The next thing I knew, it felt like the world had turned down the volume all the way. No pain, no yelling, nothing but silence. I was floating at first, and that's the only way I can think of to describe it. I wasn't in my body anymore, but I could see everything. I could see myself lying on the floor with my eyes closed, my mouth slightly open, and one arm bent awkwardly under me. Margaret was kneeling next to me, crying and yelling my name. She shook as she tried to use the phone. The armrest still had the remote on it. The TV kept talking about politics, but none of it mattered anymore. And then it hit me. I'm dead. For a moment, panic rose like a wave. How about Margaret? What about the shop? What if Trump needs us right now? But the fear went away almost as quickly as it came. I felt warmth around me, like a blanket made of sunlight and stillness. It wrapped around every worry, every thought, and every what now? And for the first time in years, I felt completely safe, not in charge, just safe. You know that feeling when you finally let out your breath after holding it for too long? It felt like that, but it wasn't just in my lungs. It was in my heart. Then I saw the light. Not too bright, not too bad. It was golden, like the light in the afternoon on a field of wheat, and I was being pulled toward it, not forced or dragged. Just a soft invitation. As I walked through the space between here and wherever there was, I felt layers of me fall away. Stress, anger, fear. Even the tightness in my chest and the stiffness in my joints are gone. I was no longer 64. I wasn't sleepy. I wasn't worried. I was who I was, the real me, under all the noise. The light led to the top of a mountain. And when I say that, I don't mean a blurry dream. I mean real. More real than anything I've ever touched. The sky was wide, clear, and never-ending. The kind of farmland and rolling hills you see in Ohio in the fall were below. There was an American flag nearby. It was faded and had torn edges from the wind, but it was still standing and waving. And there was a wind, soft, like it held memories. I heard kids laughing, church bells ringing from far away, sounds that make you think of who you were before the world got loud. I took it all in. I didn't hurry. I just stood there and let my soul breathe. Then he showed up. I didn't hear any footsteps. I didn't see a big flash. I just turned around, and there he was. Christ, he looked like a guy in his 30s. He wore old carpenter's clothes and had scars on his hands that glowed, but not in a scary way. They glowed in a healing way. His eyes broke me. They weren't judging. They weren't mad. They were full of love, sadness, and knowledge. I didn't fall to my knees because I had to. I fell because I couldn't handle the weight of that kind of love. I had spent so many years trying to prove something, that I was strong, that I was right, that I could save my country, and that I could make the world better. And there I was, looking at the one who never needed me to fix anything. All I had to do was come home. I began to cry, not just little sniffles. I mean full, open crying. I cried a lot from deep inside, from places I didn't even know were still hurt. I wanted to say something, but nothing came out. I said, "I'm sorry. I didn't know," or "Please don't send me back." But before I could say anything, Jesus knelt down next to me. At first, he didn't say anything. He just put his hand on my shoulder. At that moment, I felt more seen than I ever had before. All the noise is gone. All the anger is gone. All the effort stopped. It felt like my soul let out a breath for the first time. He finally spoke, and his voice was soft but steady, like a river in the sun. "Frank, I know how much you care about this country. You love America, but you've put a load on one man that only I can carry. Come, let me show you something." That's all he said, but it was enough. I stood there, still crying, and followed him as we turned toward the valley below. And even though I didn't know what he was going to show me yet, I knew for sure that I was safe. People knew me, and I was about to see the truth in a new way. We stood on that mountaintop looking out over the heartland. It was both beautiful and broken at the same time. The farmland looked like a quilt made of gold and green. That old American flag kept waving in the wind. It was torn and worn, but it was still there. I wasn't sure where we were going, but I had faith in him. He didn't hurry. He gave me a break. He walked next to me like an old friend who knew everything about me and still wanted to be with me. We stopped at the edge of a cliff that looked out over the valley. The sky was wide and calm. Then, with just a wave of his hand, everything below us began to move. I wasn't looking at farmland anymore all of a sudden. I was watching him. Trump. But not in a talk, not behind a desk, not with a red tie and camera lights. He was by himself, in a room by yourself. He was sitting on the edge of a hotel bed, hunched over, with his head in his hands. His shoulders looked heavy, like he was carrying a mountain. His face didn't have wrinkles because he was old. They were because of weight. Not weight in the physical sense, but something spiritual, invisible, and heavy. Jesus spoke in a soft voice. "Frank, look closer." So I did. What I saw really hit me. Trump wasn't just tired. He had a lot on his mind. He felt the weight of every hope, fear, and desperate prayer from people like me. The whole world didn't hate him. The church was worshiping him. People had stopped begging me to save the country. They were asking him. "I didn't know," I said quietly. "I thought I was asking for protection. To be a leader. I thought I was doing something good." Jesus looked at me, and his eyes were kind but full of truth. "You had good intentions, but Frank, your heart was scared. And in your fear, you put your faith in a man instead of me." I didn't know how to respond. I started to feel ashamed, but his hand reached for mine before I could sink. He said softly, "I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to show you what love looks like when it gets mixed up with power." And then the scene changed again. I saw myself at home, yelling at the news. Margaret was in the background, quiet. I saw David close the car door with the kids still strapped in, and he never came inside. I watched customers leave my store quietly, never to come back. And I saw the flags. There are so many flags. On my porch, my truck, my mailbox. But no cross. My eyes were burning with tears. "I pushed them all away," I said. Jesus nodded slowly. "You were trying to fight darkness with sound. But Frank, light doesn't yell, it shines." I fell apart. I fell to my knees and put my hands over my face. "I only wanted to save the country." "And I just wanted to save you," he said. I looked up and it was hard to breathe. "But isn't it good to love your country?" He smiled, softly, patiently, and wholly. "It's good to love your country, but don't worship it, not to give up your peace, your family, or your soul for fear that looks like patriotism." Then he showed me something that broke my heart. There was a line of kids, a lot of them, everyone, no matter how old, people from all walks of life. Some were crying, some were numb, some of them looked confused. Their eyes were tired, but not from school or chores. They were tired from carrying things that were too heavy for their age. "These are the kids who are suffering because their parents are fighting in my name," Jesus said. I wanted to turn away, but I couldn't. Frank, being obsessed with politics doesn't just hurt marriages. It makes people blind for generations. Kids are growing up thinking that the world is full of enemies and fights. He looked at me again, this time with more seriousness. "You got so focused on who was in the White House that you forgot who was at your dinner table." I put my hands over my face again. It felt like my heart was breaking. "I messed it all up," I said quietly. "My son, my spouse, my shop, my faith." Jesus got closer. "Not at all, Frank. You went the wrong way, but I've already made a way back." He showed me memories, like small, everyday ones. At church, Margaret's hand was on my arm. The first time David fixed a car in my garage. Emma's small hands are making me a Best Grandpa card. They all told me to save America. They only wanted me to be there. Jesus looked out over the horizon. "Frank, the world is loud, and a lot of people will keep yelling. But I'm looking for people who will choose love over noise. People who will enter the noise with kindness, not campaigns." Then he turned to me with such kindness that I felt like a child again. "I didn't bring you here just to show you what went wrong. I brought you here because there is still time to fix things. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go back." "Please," I said, "can't I stay? I've never felt this whole." He reached out and touched my heart with his hand. I felt a warm feeling inside me, not heat, but peace. The kind that doesn't change based on who's in charge or what the news says. I know it's hard to leave, he said, but the kids need the truth. Your family needs to get better, and my church needs to remember who their Savior really is. When I looked into his eyes, I saw everyone I had ever fought with, and instead of being angry, I was sad. And then there was love. What should I do? I asked. Go back, he said. Tell them what you saw. Love, not fear, is the best way to warn them. Show them that no one, no matter how strong, can bear the weight of a nation's hopes. Only I can. He put his hand on top of mine again. Frank, I gave Trump a part to play, but I never told my people to treat him like a god. I never asked him to carry this weight, but his body is breaking. The sickness in him is a reflection of the sickness in the church's heart. I gasped. But you can help with the healing, he said. Choose to love more than you fight, if you want to lead with humility. My face was wet with tears. Will I be able to remember all of this? I asked. He said, you'll remember enough. And if you listen, I'll remind you of what you forget. Then his face got bright. The wind picked up again, bringing with it the sound of kids laughing and the smell of home. I looked at the top of the mountain one last time, one last deep breath of perfect peace, and I said softly, okay, I will go. And with that, I was gone. Coming back was strange. 1 minute I was standing on that quiet mountaintop surrounded by golden light and the voice of Jesus still ringing in my heart. The next thing I knew, I was gasping for air. It felt heavy again. Someone had hit my chest with a truck, and it hurt. There were beeps from machines. Tubes went from my arms. The lights above me were cold and fluorescent. The air smelled like latex and rubbing alcohol. I was lying in a hospital bed, living, and for a brief time I cried. Not because I wasn't grateful, but because I had just left perfect love. I took a breath and said softly, I'm here, Lord. I remember. They said I was gone for 11 minutes. No heartbeat, nothing going on in the brain, nothing. Doctors said it was a miracle. The nurses looked at me like I shouldn't be talking, let alone sitting up and asking for pudding. But I knew better. There was more to it than a miracle. It was kindness. It was a second chance. The first person to come into my room was Margaret. There were dark circles under her eyes. Her shoulders drooped as if they were holding up a whole world that I had never thought to ask about. And for the first time in years, I really saw her. At first, I didn't say anything. I just opened my arms. She hesitated for a moment, then fell into my arms. We both cried. No fighting, no politics, just crying. I'm sorry, I said in a low voice. I've been gone longer than you think, even before I died. She nodded her head against my shoulder. They let me go home 2 days later, but I wasn't the same person who had left, and I never want to be him again. I took down the flags first. I still love this country, so don't get me wrong, but it's not the altar I pray at anymore. I put family pictures in their place. One of Margaret and me at the lake. One of David with Emma on his shoulders. This is another picture of Luke showing off a drawing he made for his grandpa. The pictures had been sitting in a drawer for a long time. They now hang where the flags used to fly. I didn't tell the kids the news when David brought them over. I didn't ask who he voted for. I didn't even turn on the TV. I made pancakes with more whipped cream instead. I let Luke talk about dinosaurs for 30 minutes without stopping. I told Emma to play her violin, even though she's still learning, and it sounds a little squeaky. I pulled David aside just before he left and said, I'm sorry for every time I made you feel like my opinion was more important than our relationship. It doesn't matter to me if we disagree. I just want to be your dad again. At first, he didn't say anything. Then he hugged me and didn't let go for a long time. A few weeks later, I opened the store again, but I took down the signs for politics. Instead, write a note by hand that says, Frank's Auto Supply, here to serve, not argue. Need prayer? Ask any time. Want to pray? Ask any time. I can't even begin to tell you how many people have taken me up on that. I haven't been to church in years, one man said, but I felt something when I read your note. A young woman cried and whispered, I used to stay away from this place. I thought you didn't like people like me. I was wrong. No flowery speeches, no arguments, only kindness, hearing, light. I started sitting in the back of church to see, not to hide. I can see the people who are sitting alone now, the widows, the moms who are alone. The teenage boys were slumped over in their hoodies, trying not to look at each other. I shake their hands. I find out their names. And I don't talk about politics. I talk about peace. I talk about the one who came to me when I had nothing to give. People ask me, what did Jesus really say about Trump's health? And I tell them the truth. His body is breaking down because it was never meant for one man to carry this much weight. And so is ours, if we don't give it back to the one who can. Jesus didn't hate Trump. He didn't say anything nice about him either. He thought of him as a man, tired, stressed, human. And he saw me, a man who had mixed up loyalty and idol worship. And he still loved me. Before I say post or do anything, I ask myself, would Jesus say this, or would he cry because of it? It makes me soft. It makes me tell the truth. My priorities have changed in the best way possible. Family dinners are better than news alerts. Holding my grandkids is better than scrolling through social media. Taking care of my heart is more important than making a point. Listening to others is better than standing up for my beliefs. Trusting God's plan is better than trying to change things. I don't walk around the house anymore in fear of who is in the White House, because I know who is in charge. If you've made it this far, maybe you see a little of yourself in me. Maybe you've yelled at the TV. Maybe you've lost time you can't get back with people who love you. Maybe you've carried fear like a badge of honor, believing it was patriotism. Maybe, like me, you just forgot where your real hope comes from. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to say, there's still time. Jesus hasn't given up on you. He hasn't given up on this nation either. But he's calling us back, not to a man, not to a movement, but to him. My name is Frank. I died in March 2025. But I came back with new eyes. And now I live, not to fight, but to love, not to shout, but to serve, not to change the world, but to be changed by the one who already did. Before we end, I invite you to let us know in the comment where you're joining from. Each response is a reminder that none of us face life's struggles alone. We are carried by God's love and by the prayers of this community. Thank you for being part of this family.